What's up, people? We're back with another episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show, and today we have the smoothest, richest coffee and Yu-Gi-Oh! Maker on YouTube. Introduce yourself, please, bro.
How's it going? I'm Justin, and I have the channel Cards and Coffee TCG.
Yeah, love it, guys. Again, this is another very, very awesome guest. Look, one of the things that's really interesting in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, we talked about it before, is like seeing the development. Like, I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh is a bit earlier than some of the other niches on YouTube. And Cards and Coffee, I really feel like your channel is such a unique take on like how to do YouTube. Even everything from your intro. Like, I'm a big coffee drinker as well, so it's like
Awesome.
I think that was the first thing that caught me when I saw the name. I was like, "Oh, this looks like an interesting channel." Then you go on it, and it's like the theme, everything, how you do your shots, and like, even your backdrop now, it looks sick. Like, it's really working. So,
Thank you.
do you mind giving us a bit of a little intro into kind of the inspiration behind your channel, your journey on YouTube, and kind of how it's brought you to where you are now?
Yeah. So as far as YouTube, I mean, I've played this game since it came to the States for the most part. I mean, at the time I was like a little kid, so it wasn't like I was like hyper competitive or anything like that. But fast forward years later, at one point I had stopped playing, and I had got back into the game when I had gotten into college, and met some friends who would play casually, and they're like, "Hey, like this game's still a game if you want to play," and that's kind of where I got hooked. While kind of going through that competitive phase around 2010 to 2011, I really started like diving into like YouTube as a resource to like kind of learn the game and try to get as good as I could get. You know, back in the day, there wasn't that many resources outside of YouTube and Pojo and articles and stuff like that. But fast forward a few more years, I know I'd always wanted to like do YouTube, but you know, I was going to college at the time, and you know, you're trying to go to school, get a career, do your thing, and eventually, after I had settled down, and you know, I've had children and all that, I finally was just like, I still play this game, and I love this game, and I play it competitively, and I have the time, and I would love to do a channel. And a friend of mine was always just like, "Hey, you should do it. We can just have fun in the beginning, and if it's something you want to keep rolling with, then keep going." And I've always been a big fan of like cinematography and videography and all stuff like that. So I was just like, okay, I'll start it. We'll have fun, and then as time goes on, we'll kind of see what happens, because like I knew it was something I genuinely wanted to do, but I know, like for me and my personality, when I do something, if I'm doing it, I try to do it as best as I can, even if it's not perfect. I try to, at least every time I do it, try to I don't know, grow in some way while I'm doing it, and that's kind of like where I'm at now.
Hey, lovely. And so you said that you're already kind of in cinematography and like videography. Is that kind of like, was that like something you studied, or was it just you got into it yourself? Like, how did you even get into that?
A lot of people ask me, like, okay, what school did you go to and what did you learn? And I went to the school of YouTube, and that's the beautiful thing about YouTube, is it'll literally teach you anything, even how to make a YouTube channel and how to do what I do, and even more. And that's what kind of like hooked me. And there's a few channels I draw inspiration from, but in general, like all the things I do and the stuff I know has mainly been rooted in YouTube. And then I have a good friend, his name's Leon, that has helped me out a lot, who's a big camera guy as well.
Okay. Well, you said Leon, I was confused. Is it Leon that we all know on YouTube, or is this a different Leon?
Oh, no, it's a different one.
Okay.
Shout out, Callie.
I wanted to ask. This is something that really piqued my interest. Obviously, you mentioned that you had children. How have you found like balancing like home life, YouTube, children, partner? Like, how have you gone about doing that, as well as being like hyper consistent? I'm in a kind of similar boat, so it's interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, first would be shout out to the family for always being supportive. My wife goes above and beyond to, help me when I can. But it's one of those things where I got to make sure that I take care of the family first, and that's just kind of always been the priority as far as finding time and stuff. the last thing for me, what I try to do is make sure that everybody's taken care of in any way that I can. So, like today, I'm up early for this podcast, so I try to make time that's separated from family life, in whether it's late nights or early mornings and being tired and stuff. It's just one of those things where I've gotten to the point where it's like, if this is something that I enjoy doing and want doing, then I go out of the way to inconvenience myself to make it happen. That way I don't take away from family, because like you said, it could be very hard when you got kids got school, and then you got work, and then you get home, and then now you got time with the family, dinner and all that, and then you're like, oh man, it's already like 7 or 8 o'clock and I haven't shown a video yet, or right. So yeah. I definitely understand where you're coming from. It can be a lot to juggle, and I'm not saying I do it perfectly, because I don't. I'm still trying to master that, but just making time where I can, I guess.
I was about to say, looking at your YouTube channel and speaking to you over the last few days that we have been, you strike me as someone who's got the mentality of, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it like with 100% of my capabilities. Would you say that's true? Like, would you definitely describe yourself as like an all or nothing kind of guy?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, like I'm pretty lazy also, so it's like, but I know that about myself, so I have to like stay on myself about that. But yeah, I if I'm gonna do it, I'm not gonna like lie to myself and say like, if I'm just gonna, do it halfway, that I'm gonna get everything out of it that I'm hoping to get. Right now, in the beginning, like when I first started, when I taking it seriously, I figured, I'm like, even if I put all this time and effort, because a lot of these videos with the editing, because I do all my own editing and color grading and everything from start to finish. I don't send it to anybody, but
wow,
all of it's like as time has gone on. In the beginning, it was a lot easier. It took a while because the softwares I was using, it'd take a long time to render, but like actually shooting and cutting and everything went pretty quick. But now that I've grown and learned more and I've added more to videos, like the process of producing a video takes a lot longer. So being able to kind of, what was the original question? I'm sorry.
No, just saying, you've pretty much answered it, to be fair. Just talking about like your work ethic and things like that. I had no idea that you edited everything on the channel.
One man army, man. This is super dad right here.
Like, I often bring this up like to people who are asking me for channels to recommend. Like, I remember the first time looking at your channel, it was like a level of like crispness in like audio quality, sound quality, video quality. It was something that I don't think we've seen really, for me anyway, since like Ruggles first came onto the scene.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Like, I know this isn't YouTube Yu-Gi-Oh, but the channel that you instantly reminded me of is Xbox Ahoy. I don't know if you guys ever watched like the Call of Duty commentators, but like the reason being, even though like your channel's different to him in terms of what you're doing, it was a similar thing where it's like when he came on the scene, it's like he had this very distinctive voice. His videos were so high quality and stuff, and it was the same thing with yours. Like from your intro to like your thumbnails, everything was just like, yeah, like Dan said, it's completely like head and shoulders above everything else in quality.
100%.
I appreciate that. And in the beginning, like I would, like even today, I still think like I have a lot of room to grow and to get better. And there's a lot of things that I'll put out. And like, I mean, like that's with anything. As you advance, you start nitpicking things that you might not have nitpicked in the beginning. But like as you start stepping up, the quality of this, now the next time you do it, you already have the bar at so high. And so now you start trying to bring it up every time. And so there's a lot of times where I'll put out a video and go like, I could have done, the pacing of this better, or even just something simple as like some of the B-roll I'll shoot and be like, wow, like, I really didn't like how that moved and how that transition, like maybe I could have done that transition, put an extra like 10 minutes into it to make it look better. But like even today, like I'm still feel like my stuff, I enjoy how it looks and how it comes out, but I'm definitely wanting to do more. It's just the more you do, the more time it takes. And like we talked about, like making time is the hardest resource when it comes to YouTube, for sure.
And then sorry, carry on then.
I was just going to say, just off the back of that, like I think everyone can agree that you're always going to be your own biggest critic. But from like an outsider perspective, like quality-wise, you're absolutely like smashing it out of the park, Justin.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's all good, man. And it's not even just like us like Bo and Smoking it. Like a lot of our friends have talked about the channel. Like you're big across the pond, bro.
Yeah,
But Fab, sorry, you were about to land.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna kind of pile on and agree that, because I was gonna even say it's probably even pressure from like fans as well, because like from the perspective of a fan, it's like, yeah, like it's what you're one of the channels that I'm waiting to see in my feed. So it's like I can imagine there's that pressure from you as well. It's like it's like I really want it to be good, but then it's like I don't want to take too long because I want to deliver for my fans. So I do get kind of that dichotomy. But
yeah,
one of the things that I wanted to ask you next would be, so you do a lot of decks on your channel. Like that's another thing I think that is quite interesting. Like you're not specific. One of the things that who was it? I can't remember. A while ago, we had a discussion with YouTube, and we were saying how one of the best ways for you to grow on YouTube is at small sizes to like niche down into a specific deck or something, and that lets you grow up. I'd say your channel's a bit different, where it was like you've got a breadth of really, really good guides for like every deck in the format almost. And so it's a two-part question, which is firstly, is that kind of an intentional thing where it's like you just like playing a lot of decks? And then also, again, going back to the time, how have you had time to kind of explore and make those guides for each one of those decks?
So for me, my approach to YouTube when I took it serious, because like even right now, I still think my channel is small compared to a lot of other channels. So right now, it's funny because for the longest time, I would tell myself, until I hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm in the growing phase. I'm just trying to get the channel, get a following, blah, 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 blah. And even now at 10,000, I'm still mentally just like, oh, your channel's still growing. Like, you know, because to me, I know I could make the most high quality, awesome B-roll filled vlog or YCS trip or whatever deck or, you know, gameplay, you name it. But the amount of time and effort that goes into it, for the return on the views, it's almost not productive, as dumb as it sounds, because it's content I want to make, and eventually I will. But it's in my head, it's always been, at the end of the day, nobody's gonna, you know, YouTube search Yu-Gi-Oh vlog, or you know, you got to put your head. At least for me, what my approach has always been, put my shoes or put myself in the people's, you know, place, and try to think about what are they searching, what do they want to see, what are they interested in, or what's popular or right now, right? And it's not so much like, you know, jumping from hot topic to hot topic, but it's just be genuine. Like, okay, a new set's coming out. What are some of the decks? Okay, here's the decks, and I'm going to go out of my way to make sure I get the cards. That way I'm, you know, within the first week of release, I at least have a video, because that's going to be something people search. And I'm not saying it's going to get you like tens of thousands views, but, you know, it's one of those things where when it comes to, you know, everybody likes to like point at the algorithm, like my videos don't get passed around on the algorithm because of YouTube, but really, at the end of the day, you kind of, the first thing that needs to happen is people need to find your video. And if they don't find it, they don't even have the chance to stimulate the algorithm. So the best thing to do is have a title that is something that would be very generically searched, or at least some keywords that are searched. So for example, like the most recent one that came to my channel was the Fire King Snake Eye deck profile. And so as long as I make sure the words Fire King Snake Eye and deck profile is somewhere in that title, I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know about you guys, and I've always asked other friends and stuff, and it's something you guys can do too, is just like, hey, when you search a video, what do you type, right? And just ask people, and you can kind of get a general idea. And also there's like resources on YouTube too. You can like look at things that are like similarly searched titles and words that are like, that was used to find your channel, and you can kind of like focus on stuff like that. So that's always kind of been like my approach, is not so much because I thought that not niching down on a deck was the best thing to do. I just thought it was the best way to at least start getting traction on the channel, to where even if I didn't get tens of thousands of views, somebody's going to be looking for a deck profile. And so what I needed to do is make sure that once they clicked that video that I hooked them. And so that's where quality came in. I said, okay, so like this isn't going to be me, doing some shot over a dueling book or something that most people will do. And at times I'll use like Omega and stuff like that. So there's like nothing wrong with like using programs like that. It's just I just wanted to make sure that there was something different about the channel. And so it was more so not trying to unintentionally or not trying to intentionally pick different decks. It's just trying to pick something I thought other people genuinely wanted to search, and then really focusing on bringing a good product to them if they came across it.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
I was going to say that's very interesting, because I know I spoke to you about this, Fabs, about like certain type of content, and I feel like I'm at the point where you were at, because I am still consistently posting like duels, like live duels, and those tend to be some of my better watched videos. And it's not a big commitment for me to produce those. Whereas if I produce like a guide or something like that, that does take a while, and then it kind of takes away from the time I could be doing other things, if you get what I mean. And it doesn't always, I'm not always in receipt of the views, if you get what I mean, for the time given. So it's interesting to say that. But what I also will say is you've definitely tapped into a market, because anytime I watch a video on YouTube, not just yours specifically, I have a cup of coffee. Like, I'm a coffee fan.
Yeah.
So when you're telling me to go and get a coffee, I'm like, oh, okay, then I'll go and get one. That's fine. Like, yeah, I was gonna do that anyway. Thanks. Like, so
this just brings me on to a question I did want to ask, Andre. Thank you for bridging that so nicely for me. Justin, how did you come to like have the tie-in with the coffee? Because like, I'm gonna just let everyone listening know. Pretty much every other message that I've been speaking to Justin about, he signed it off with a coffee emoji, and I think that's such good branding. It's such good branding. I'm such a fan of that. So, like, talk to us a little bit about your love for the coffee.
So funny. Before the channel even happened, so like I said, I've played this game forever, and I love it to death. And one thing when I was younger that I had always wanted was either to run my own coffee shop or run my own card shop. And I remember joking about it to friends and family, and just like, I'm just gonna make my own shop, and it'll have a coffee shop in one corner, and then the other side there's gonna be a counter. You go buy cards, and there's be tables, you play, chill. It'd be called Cards and Coffee. And so when the YouTube thing came around, I was just like, this doesn't really make any sense, and I'm sure people are going to be confused, but it's just something that's always stuck with me, so I'm going to run with it. And I mean, here we are, I guess. But
is that still the end goal? Or is that something you still like to do, to open the shop?
I mean, that would be great, but it's
logistically,
it's
right?
kind of it's all about exactly, time, money, family. But that would be it'd be nice.
Yeah, I think it would, and it's funny as well, because it's like, again, when you go into your channel, it's like, even that branding is like, that's the thing that I think of now. Like, I think going back to when you're talking about like what people would search for and stuff, going back to like that, if we think like 2-3 years and it's like you're in the hundreds or the millions of subscribers or whatever, it's like you've already got this really good thing that's like I can connect you with. But it's like Cards and Coffee even just sounds good already, like even with the cap and everything, like like it really is like it's a brand already that I can recognize and I can look at and say, I already know what this guy is. But when I see your logo, it's like I already know what's popping. So I think it's it's a really good
Thanks.
job,
It's been a work in progress, and I've had help with like people who've helped me like design logos and stuff like that. And again, like in the beginning, I mean, you can probably go back onto my channel and you can see like the first couple of videos, which are like, I did it with a friend of mine, Ricardo, and it was literally just, again, we had no intentions of like doing anything big on YouTube, but it was just, we wanted to do a progression series of our own. So we're just like, let's just have fun and do some progression, and we'll just film it and put it on YouTube. And it kind of goes back to like what I was saying in the beginning, like trying to step your game up in every way. Like when I first got into YouTube, I didn't know anything, like editing. Like you can tell too within like the first 5 episodes or so of that, series, call it. Like there's a lot of times where the audio isn't synced up, and like the quality is just very, very low, and all of a sudden the music's super loud at one point, and then like my audio's super quiet. It's just like, it was a learning progress, of course. And that's what it was all about. It's just like, I'm just going to make these videos. Nobody's going to watch them, but I know as I keep doing them, I know I'm going to watch them and I'm going to be able to critique them and kind of go, okay, next episode, I want to make the music, the volume not so damn loud, right? Or whatever it is. So it's like, and just being able to take that, and I think, I don't even remember when it was, but the first time I decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just start actually making content because I'm starting to get a flow and a feel for all this editing. It was a deck profile video, I believe, and it did pretty well, and it did like infinitely better than any of my progressions. But obviously, it's like, again, learning the whole YouTube thing. People are never going to search. Like I thought in my head, I'm like, people are going to search progression series because people search it for SEMO, but that's not the case. People are subscribed, and it's going to get pop up on their feed because they continually watch it. That YouTube's going to step in and say, hey, you want to watch this because you watched it for an hour last week, right? And so, and that's just stuff you learn as time goes on. But for me, once I started realizing, once you cater your content towards the search engine, it's not going to I'm not going to promise it like exponentially grows your channel or anything, but it's just one of the best things you can do in the beginning to just start getting traction.
Every day is a school day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely. Right, and so next up, guys, I want to move on to a little bit of a Phantom Nightmare talk. So as we know, we've moved into this awesome.
I mean, Phantom Nightmare, perhaps the greatest set of all time.
just reference. Yeah, Dan is a huge U-Bell fan. I like U-Bell too, but not as much as Dan. Not as much as Dan.
I've got the Jaden U-Bell map coming. It's going to look really nice in the backdrop. But I digress. There's a lot more to talk about in Phantom Nightmare.
So we've talked a lot about like the fire decks. We all know fire decks are amazing and stuff, but Dan brought up something really good, which is like, let's talk about some of the other decks in the set that we're interested about. And to kick it off, I'm going to say that for me personally, one of the decks that we were just talking about before this started, and I'm very happy when you said it, Andre, I was very happy that you started exploring it, is the new Goatee deck, the new fish deck. Yeah, they definitely got some support. It's an interesting deck. So what do we think about that deck, guys?
I think it's super slept on. The testing cycle that I've been doing, like with the rest of the Sanctum squad, which is the channel that I'm a part of. Subscribe if you haven't. We've been testing like a lot of the more off meta picks, like Goatee and Magispectors, and Magispectors is definitely one that I want to talk about because that deck's nuts. But the Goatee deck it's really got legs. It plays through such a lot. Like it's weird because it's a banish deck that can't play Shifter, but like the random like board wipes and stuff that it pulls out, and just the different forms of interaction, it's nuts. It plays into Talons, but like whatever in it. I think deck's sick. Andre, you probably got more of a grasp on the deck than I have, considering you've actually played with the cards and not just sat across from them. So I'll let you carry on.
So on my desk right now, I have got all the Magispector cards. There we go. I've got all the Goatee cards, and I've just been just doing some mad testing, and I feel like the reason why Goatee is good is because it can play on your opponent's turn, but then your opponent would typically burn a few interactions on your own turn, if you get what I mean. So you kind of dwindling them out of resources before you've even like really got your engine going, and I think that's what I find attractive about the deck, is just because, all right, imperm, fine, standby phase effect, and then I'll just play on my opponent. That's the thing that I really like that, and I think it's a little bit slept on, as well as it does a lot of banishing. Even though you need your graveyard, things just get sent to the Nether Realm, and they don't come back. They get lost in space, and I like that concept of the deck.
I think it's important to mention with the Goatee deck as well, because a lot of cards right now are getting effects when they're destroyed, and like D-Shifter and things like that are cool, but the cards are still classed as destroyed, whereas Goatee just outright banishes them. So they're not going to proc any effects, which is something to definitely consider in this current meta.
Yeah, definitely. It's been doing a good job. I think a really interesting thing is when you look at Goatee, there's actually a lot of random archetypes and engines that go well with it that you wouldn't expect. So, like, obviously there's Runic Goatee. You've got the Supé and the Fire and Ascator engine as well. That goes really well with Goatee. You can use loads of different Synchro engines. So, like, all of the Synchron, Revolution Synchron, Assault Synchron, these are all good cards in Goatee as well. And I think it's really cool that you've got a deck like this that can literally can use so many different things. I feel like the floor is really out there. I do think it does have some issues. I think the biggest issue with Goatee that I've always found is that it plays really well on my opponent's turn, but it doesn't do enough on my own turn. Sometimes it's a bit annoying when I don't open Leaf. It's just like passing on two bodies, I guess. But like when you get into the game, it is quite nice. I do like the deck a lot.
I think as well. Conversely, like Magispectors are really good. Like the targeting and destruction effect is crazy. Like I was just testing it the other day on I think it was like EDO Pro or Dueling Book. I just watched my opponent sit there for like 2 turns just because he's playing Runics and like he can't do anything, and I just had monsters on the field. But there are a few flaws with that deck, which it's why it probably hasn't got the coverage that it has. Like,
they didn't unban Kirin. I don't know why they didn't. And they literally released a monster that said summon Kirin from the deck, and then they didn't unban Kirin. I'm still a bit baffled as to why they didn't unban Kirin. But
yeah, I think one of the most insane things about Magic Spectres is right now they can search one of the they can search one of the cards which is really broken going first, because I don't know if anyone's read Majesty Maiden, the one was in Darkwing Blast, but it has a similar effect to the Crystal Beast Trap in that it can search any field spell.
Yeah,
which is fucking broken.
Yeah, I think what makes it broken is not just that card can search any field spell, but it's a 1-card combo to get that card plus your Magispector board.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're searching Secret Village, you're searching Necro Valley. I don't know if there's any other busted field spells, because those are the only 2. Whenever I think of broken field spells, are the only 2. But yeah, it's a problem for your opponent.
Yeah, Zombie World and like Flu became big again for whatever reason.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
But Justin, what about you? What have you been enjoying that's been maybe a little bit under the radar?
Under the radar. So the decks you're talking about now are definitely decks that I've enjoyed. At least I haven't gotten the chance to play them like in person, like with actual cardboard. But I really enjoyed the Goaty cards in general. Like when they were first announced, I was like, please be good. The art on these are so cool. And like right now, I definitely feel like the Runic approach is probably the better way right now. Just for kind of like what you said, like if you don't like open your starter, then you like at least the Runic cards can potentially help you dig for that. Plus the utility of the cards are really good. But like you said, you don't do too much on your first turn. It's more of like playing on your opponent's turn. But I think like whether it's Goaty or whether it's Goaty or Magispector, I think one of the best parts is when you're playing a deck like that, like most people don't read those cards. So it's like that in its own is an advantage, especially if you're like very well versed in it. Yeah. Because and it's with any deck. When you're going to an event, whether it's like the deck everybody knows or the deck nobody knows, is if you're efficient with it and you know lines fairly competently and you can move at a fast pace and pivot when interactions come your way, it makes it a lot harder for your opponent to have to react to your reactions if they don't know what your cards do, because they might need to pick it up and read it, or they're not going to know what a choke point is, or like with Magispector, they're going to be like, oh, I'll just imperm that. You're like, oh, well, you can't target this guy. Well, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's crazy. But so like that goes a long way. To me, it's just about, because like I mentioned before, I do play fairly competitively. It's more about what can last multiple rounds. Like to me it's like can it stand 10 plus rounds? Like that's the question. Is it consistent enough? Is it versatile enough? Does it have enough coverage to deal with whatever the meta is? Or like what's the reason? Like there always has to be a reason for playing the deck, whether it's like you're playing this deck because it's the best deck, or you're playing this deck because it answers a certain niche in the format, or like I'm playing this because it's good enough against maybe the best deck and nobody else is going to know what the heck my cards do. So that's what it is. I know for me personally, when going back to the new set, I'm really interested in the Yubel cards. I think they're very interesting. I haven't had the time to sit down and like work with them, but I know anytime I've gone up against them online, I've after reading them all, I'm like, some of these cards are just like stupid. So they definitely, I think there's a lot of potential for them. As of right now, though, I don't know if they're like good enough to compete with these fire decks. But
yeah, it's with the next set with the field spell, it really gets like the boost. There's a fiend pile that's waiting to be brewed somewhere with that field spell. Like in fact, it's generic as well, but I could do a whole podcast about Yubel anyway. Yeah, so I think...
well, there's one other deck that I think is good, but I've never learned myself. I think Raid Raptors has potential. The problem is, I've never played it, and I don't even know where it's one of those decks. It reminds me a bit when I started to learn DDD, where it was like, I was lucky that what was his name again? There's this awesome YouTuber who just did DDD content, and I remember like,
Jacked.
Yes, Jacked. So it's like, luckily enough, it happened to be like Jacked like had like so many in-depth guides and that helped me. But it was like a process to learn DDD. Like I had tried and failed to learn DDD like 10 times before I found this content. And I'm in a similar process of Raid Raptor where I'm really trying to figure it out, because it just feels like a deck with this much support and like 2 towers can't be bad. Like that's what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, like they got they just randomly got rank 13. And I was like, well, oh, cool. So and then people were talking about how they've supposedly there's like a Raid Raptor circular now, and yeah, I really think that deck has potential. I have no idea how to play it though. I don't know if you guys do, but I need to figure out how to play this deck, because I think it does have something in it that might make it worth looking at.
I don't know how to play
I've dabbled in it a little bit, but it's also a bit of a burn deck as well. Like I've seen like 3k burn on it. That Towers monsters burns for the attack.
Yeah,
the monsters it destroys. Yeah.
Shout out to Solon, by the way. When we had him on the episode, he told us the best way to hit Raid Raptors was Imperm the Raiders Night. So here's a free cheat code for everyone.
Yeah, I'll be real. I wouldn't have guessed that, because they do like 15 steps before they even get there. So it's like, usually I'm just chucking out. I'm like, see a link to, I guess I imperm that. See the bird, the 4 strix, I guess I imperm that. He was like, no. He was like, Raiders Night hit that. So yeah, definitely.
I do think it's like a real shame that we've entered a quote unquote tier 0 format when we've had so many like fan favorite decks have some really good support come out in Phantom Nightmare. But I suppose that's the price you pay, isn't it? Legacy of Destruction, I think is going to be a set that does like that fan service, but like a bit better than Phantom Nightmare has, just because of the popular and the Promethean Princess and what have you pushing fire so far up the competitive tier list. But the stuff in Legacy Destruction, like the Lightsworn cards, are very cool. We've got the Fiend Spot, obviously, as mentioned before. I think that's going to be a really good set going forward. Has anyone looked into anything from Legacy of Destruction? Because it is coming out very soon. It's coming out in April.
Yes, and there's a deck that I know no one takes me seriously. I made a whole guide on my channel about it, but the Melodious archetype is actually sick.
Oh, yeah.
Look, Melodious is actually... Do you know why? Just because... It's kind of similar to Magic Spectre, where it's like, right now, Viking, if you norm some Bambuku, like, they're looking at you and they're quite upset. And that's literally the same thing as Melodious. Like, Melodious getting their area lock, they're getting it off 1 card, and they've got, like, 8 cards that can get to that in their combo. And so it's like, they're just going to put up a board that you can't out, then they're going to let you flood the board of monsters, then they're just going to kill you, because they've got a really easy OTK combo, but they need you to put monsters on the board. So, I do think Melodious has a little bit of potential. I think it's a shame, though, what we're going to see almost certainly is similar to what we saw in Pote, where in Pote a bunch of archetypes got support, and not even just in Pote, but from Pote all the way till Tier and Cash left the format, a bunch of archetypes got support, but then by the time Tier and Cash had left the format, those archetypes are power crept. And I have a feeling that's what we're going to see now. So I feel like by the time the Diabel start and the one, because Snake Eyes just started, right? Like the story arc of it has just started, so we're probably going to see it for a few more months. And I'm saying a few more months, maybe even like a year or something. We're still seeing Albaz support somehow. So, like, I have a sneaking suspicion, like, it'll be a while before, like, the Magic Spectre stuff gets to shine and the Goblin stuff gets to shine, which is a bit of a shame, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. Just before we get into a little bit more meta talk, I do want to offer a question to the floor. We've talked about decks that we think haven't seen support. We think they're going to be cool, that people are overlooking. I have a question. I think Andre's answered this on the show already. Maybe Fabs has. I know he's mentioned it to me off camera anyway. So, what is everyone's favourite bad deck? I'll tee it off. I'm a huge fan of heroes, but not like Omni Hero. I like playing like Dark Law Toad stuff. It's very, very cheesy, very bad, but I'm just a big fan of Toad and Dark Law, and I'm a Jet kid. So, yeah. Fabs, I know what you're going to say, so I'll let you. Well,
I have 2 answers actually. So the first one is, when we're talking about bad, are we saying bad as in like unplayable bad?
Nah, just bad as in like you wouldn't take it to an you'd take it to a local specifically if you.
The problem is there's very few decks I wouldn't take to an event. So yeah, but So I'd say, yeah, my first answer would be probably like something like Dark Lords. Like I say all the time, I think the Dark Lord and the Solemn archetype and everything. It just has some of the best artwork. Like it just looks so good thematically with the Condemned cards and the Forbidden cards. Everything is so cool. So I really like Dark Lords. But I'd say that kind of like on a side to that as well. I really like Virtual World as well. I wouldn't say like it's bad. But like I remember when Virtual World came out, it was kind of similar to Rescue where I really, really enjoyed that deck. But like it's just not really playable. I know people are doing shenanigans now with the Mayakashi trap and everything, but it's not real. Like it's just any deck that can dump 2 traps basically can do it. It just happens to be a Virtual World right now is the best deck. But I'll probably put those 2. There's others, but yeah, those would be mine.
I'd say for now, at the moment, I play a load of different decks. But Dragoon is definitely one that I'd class as like a quote-unquote bad deck. I would take it to locals, but I'll sit there and combo in between rounds and end on one monster and feel good about myself.
Yeah.
So definitely Dragoon. And the other one is Dinomorphia.
Let's go.
Because I've won a game on 8 life points. And my opponent just like sat there with his mouth open. He's like, "Well, why can't I kill you? Like right now, why can't you die?" I'm just banishing traps from the graveyard, protecting myself, and then like Rexsturm is broken in it. Yeah. So yeah, Dinomorphia just for that reason.
It's a cool deck, man. It's definitely a cool deck. Yeah. On the back of you talking about Dragoonities, I want to tell. I've told Fabs already. I'm sure I've told this already in the pod. I want to tell Justin very quickly about a little story that happened between me and you at locals. So it was. I think it was just after Radio Overlord came out. Andre's got the bye first round. I've won my game. I'll go over to him. I'm like, what are you doing? He's just doing like TG test hands. And he's like, this is like, having loads of fun here. And I'm like, okay. Like I'm looking forward to seeing what TG does. Because Andre's known for like you said, playing like some off meta picks. Next round, I'm up against Andre. I sit down. He wins the dice roll, goes first. Someone's a Fenrir. I'm like, okay, Fenrir makes sense. Like good generic card. And then he just Manadium combos me. I'm like, I just lose.
That's great.
Yeah, cool. What about you, Justin?
So it's funny. I love Dragoonity also. It's not like I'm not gonna say it's my favorite deck, but I have a special spot in my heart for it because it was the deck when, like I said, like I played this game since basically it came out, and I stopped playing in high school just because most of the people I hung out with didn't play, and I wasn't playing competitively or anything, so those cards just kind of sat in the box. But by the time I got back to college and started playing again, at the time it was like around 2010, and the Dragoonity cards had just started to come out, and then the structure deck came out, and Stardust Dragon was the card that caught my eye, and that deck just made Stardust Dragon. So like for me, I would just kind of gravitated towards that, even though the deck wasn't that great at the time. But even now, like when I play a lot of retro formats and I go back, I'm like, make Dragoonity work, and I'll try it. But I definitely have a special spot in my heart for that deck, especially because like in 2013, I wound up getting a top with like Dragoonity Rulers, so it was like it kind of felt special to me. Lovely. Like it kind of worked out. But like for me, like the deck that I always like think about when people are like, "What's your favorite deck?" It's always Windups. Why I don't know. It's just one of the decks that I could never put down, like from when it was hand looping you to like shock locking you back in like 2012, 2013, and then when the deck was in complete shambles and had like no Zen Mighty, I was still trying to play the deck because Mermail was so big and it made Dweller super easily with like Mimic Saber Invoker and stuff. And one of my favorite cards is Tour Guide from the Underworld, and you played like 3 of that at the time, and so to me that's like always the most nostalgic and the deck that always, like when I was playing really competitively or at least getting into the competitive scene, that like I'll always look back at and be like, okay, if ever I could play Wind Up again I would, but yeah, I probably wouldn't bring that to locals anytime soon.
Just wondering, like on the flip side, what is your current like deck that you're like playing, or like that is there a specific deck that's like, yeah, this is what I'm focusing on right now?
Well, right now I'm like in the grind phase for YCS Las Vegas for the 3v3. And so I'm just playing a lot of fire, a lot of voiceless, all the things you'd like expect to see, plus like basically playing a bunch of like the new stuff. Just to learn as much as I can, because it's one thing to know, I need to imperm the Raiders night, right? But to know as a Raid Raptor player, like what the other lines are after that happens, and kind of put yourself in the shoes of the other player. So when they start playing cards, you go, oh, I know what they're trying to do now. I can see, and then kind of adjust from there. Like that's important no matter what deck it is. And unfortunately you can't prepare for everything, but you try to do your best and prepare for what you can. Right now I am currently leaning towards a fire dot deck. The cards are just like I mentioned earlier, it's all about getting through like 12 plus rounds, right? And so they're just the most consistent right now, and they are very targeted, but I think it's for a reason.
Definitely makes sense.
I don't know exactly which one I'm going to go with yet, but I'm guessing it's not going to be Rescue Ace. It could, I don't know, like the quality of the Rescue Ace cards, like the setting 4 is just like really good, like rescuing their cards or, the pop and the negate are like really good right now. And a lot of the interactions are all, talents take a monster or like throw a bunch of hand traps, and Ace can play through hand traps really well. And so like it's very tempting to play the deck, but to me, you don't get to play the best Snake Eye cards, which are like Ash and Flamberg and stuff like that. And then also you have to play like 4 or 5 cards that you just don't ever want to draw. And so like for me, there's when your deck build, because I deck build around a lot of math, and so like for me, like I have like OCD about it, where like there's no like way to mitigate drawing these bricks. Like it's gonna happen. So like, but the best you can do is you can build your decks to mitigate drawing multiples by playing like over 40, or you could just like embrace the brick and just say I'm going to see these cards, because it's very frustrating if you're like, I hope I don't see these cards, and you go into a tournament and you're seeing it once every match. Like it's gonna mess with you mentally. So like you almost have to accept like you're gonna see these cards, and I just don't want to deal with that for 12 rounds. Even though I'm sure it'd be fine, but
no, 100% agree. Funnily enough, so just last night I was having a chat with like Laundry and some other guys in his Discord, and that's literally the problem. Like, I think you're even being nice when you said 4 bricks. I count 9 bricks in Rescue Ace, because Turbulence is a brick, Preventer is a brick. If you see Preventer and no other cards, you pass it on an empty board. So it's like, and that's exactly it. Like, funny enough, I bought a case of what's the set that
Age of Overlord.
I bought a case of Agov, and so when that came out, I had a full Snake Eye core already, but then I lost my 2 Flambird Dragons. So I don't know how, but I've lost them, and I refuse to buy it. So if I'm playing Rescue Ace now because I love the deck, but it's also because I just don't want to buy 2 more Flambird Dragons after I knew I had 2. But if I had a choice, I'd 100% play pure Snake Eye, because like in Rescue Ace you can't play Snake Eye Ash, and that's the best card in the format. So 100% agree with that. I think it's unfortunate, guys, but Rescue Ace is no longer the best deck. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. You've heard it here first. I'm admitting it.
It's truly a sad day. Justin, you might not know, but Fabs has been on Rescue Ace since Amazing Defenders dropped before the hype.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it came out, and I was like, I don't know why, but I thought it was like, Firefighters? This is so like normal. I was like, I want to play this deck now. And then they got support. And I was like, they got support. I was like, this is even better. So, it is what it is. Happens.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But we are coming up to the hour mark, I believe, Fabs, right?
Like 10 minutes off. So I'd say we got enough time for like one more topic before we move into a specific.
Okey-dokey.
Yeah.
So, Andre, did you want to go through any of the questions that you'd amassed for Justin?
Yes. So, really quickly, I got 2 questions here from subscriber and just a couple of my friends. So, one of them was your favorite card and why. And I know you've alluded to it a little bit, Justin, but I think you mentioned Tour Guide. So, why did you say that was your favorite card?
So, Tour Guide for me, when I started taking the game serious, Tour Guide was like the card to get. It was like the Dark Arm Dragon of the format. Like everybody needed a play set, and for me, to get my hands on Tour Guides back in the day, I had just like started taking the game seriously at a point where Tour Guide had already blown up in price. I had missed my chance to like get them while they were cheap, and in the States at the time they were like $250 to $275 or something like that for one copy. And so for me, I had to it took me a long time to give up an arm and a leg to be able to have a playset of tour guides for my Tengu plant deck. And by the time I had gotten it, we had almost moved out of Tengu plant format, going into what was that? Dino Rabbit and all that stuff had already come out. So at least I had the tour guides for that. But I was playing this bootleg plant deck with other dark cards like Mystic Tomato and Phantom Sky Blaster when I didn't have Tengus. It took a while, right? You know how it is when trying to pick up cards. But when I finally got my hands, I was finally I can play this deck how it's meant to be played, and and I got to hold on to those, and I still have those tour guides somewhere floating around to this day. But yeah, when they got reprinted and hit on the ban list and they dropped to $25, I'm just oh man, how much should I pay for these again? I mean, I don't know what they're at now, but I know I'm never getting rid of these. This is my favorite card, and I gave up an arm and a leg to get them.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I think we've all been there with regards to seeing our cards just get inflated away into the distance. And last question. If a Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore story was going to be animated, what would you like to see?
I would like to see the Necroz cards in some kind of...
That's a banger suggestion.
I really it's funny, my second favorite card would be Necroz of Brionic. I've just always loved the aesthetic of Necroz, and I've had success with them in the past too, so that might be why I'm a little biased, but I love those cards. They're so cool. I wish they were good now, but modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Has so many hand traps where back in the day Necroz just didn't have to deal anything but with Valor and Maxi at the time. Yeah. But I love that deck too. So if I could get a anime out of that, that'd be dope.
Okay. Have you know Nash, right?
Yes,
Darth
yeah.
I was going to say, huge GT guy, shout outs to Nash. This is something I did want to ask. So obviously, Darth Nash is a huge fan of yerba mate, and he's started to incorporate that into a little bit of his channel. So are we going to see a collab, the coffee versus the yerba? Is that something that we could potentially see on the cards?
So it's funny, when I was a smaller channel and I came across his channel and stuff like that, that was the first thing that came to mind. I'm what is this guy doing with yerba mate? I'm obviously coffee's the way. And so I started poking at him, and I just comment coffee best drink, coffee emoji or whatever, just kind of bug him. And Nash is such a good person. Anytime I'm interacting with him, he's just one of the nicest people. I've met him in person finally. The last YCS I went to, where was it? Indianapolis, maybe? I don't remember. Richmond? I don't know. Yeah. Regardless, I met him in person, and again, same thing. And we joke about it too, the rivalry of yerba mate versus coffee and stuff. And so I hope someday we do something together. It'd be hilarious. We always talk about when we see each other, we're gonna try to do something. But I know he won't be at Vegas, unfortunately. But we're always poking at each other and having fun, and it would be good to do something. I think we've talked about it prior, but we haven't really sat down and set anything in stone or anything like that.
I reckon we make this happen, Fabs. I reckon we get Justin and Nash, because we've had Nash previously. He's a joy.
Oh, nice.
We should definitely get that big showdown. Get them to each try and convince someone who doesn't like it either. Which would be
that'd be a great idea. I think that'd definitely be a great idea.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So I have I have an Am I the Arsehole today that I think it'd be really cool if we went through. And I especially like this one because we've got two dads on the show, and I want to see what you guys are perspective on this, because I was a little bit stumped with this one. So the title is
familiar, right? Sorry, you're just taking a drink of alcohol. Very rude of me. Justin, you're familiar with the concept of Am I the Arsehole, right?
I believe so, right? You're just gonna say out a scenario and then get our opinions on
exactly.
Pretty much, yeah.
So this one reads, am I the arsehole for sending my daughter to school in her pajamas? My 7-year-old daughter has recently started to make mornings more difficult by throwing a fit when we ask her to get ready for school. We tried setting her clothes out the night before, but she still makes an issue out of it, and she doesn't want to sleep in her clothes, so that's not an option either. My wife leaves for work before me, so I'm normally the one who has to deal with the tantrums in the morning. I woke Elsie up, and as always, she refused to get dressed. I wasn't really in the mood to deal with her BS, and I didn't have the energy to fight with her about it. So I told her that that's okay, I'm just going to take her to school in her pyjamas. She looked pretty shocked because I don't think she was expecting that outcome, but the rest of the morning went a lot smoother than normal. We got in the car, her still in her pyjamas, and she was more quiet than usual, so I could tell she was a bit unsure of what was going on. But after a while of driving, the realization set in and she told me she wanted to go home and change. I told her she's already made her decision and I wasn't driving her back home now. She started freaking out and saying she wanted me to drive home and she didn't want to go to school in her pyjamas, but I wasn't turning the car around, and so we arrived at school and she eventually went in. After my wife came home from collecting her from school, she looked pissed. She didn't say anything in front of Elsie, but later in the evening she went off on me. She said I had embarrassed her and made us look like bad parents who can't be bothered to dress our daughter. Am I the asshole? What do you think, guys? Yeah, I can't lie, with this one I'm in so many minds, so I really want to see what you guys think on this.
I got it. Dad's you're up.
Justin, do you want to take the lead, or do you want to have a little?
Yeah, sure, I'll take it. So like as a parent, I've been in similar situations where, like, when you're dealing with a child, sometimes there's no logical debate, right? There's not like you can sit the kid down and be like, all right, let's think about why you're thinking and feeling what you're feeling, and this is why what you're saying is illogical and why it makes no sense. There's none of that, right? You can't. There's not talking to an adult. So there's times where like kids just get something in their head and they're just like no, they're like, this is it. So like I can totally understand in like, I'm not going to deal with this. We're going to school. My head instantly went to like, I wonder what his significant other was thinking, because I know like if I did that, the first thing that would happen is my wife would be like, why are you sending our kid to school like this? It's embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
And, so just hearing that story play out, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I thought it would play out. But I mean, I think it's good for me. I probably would have like turned around after the point, but I think it's still it accomplished what needed to be accomplished in that learning moment, I guess, where the kid finally realized like, maybe this is embarrassing, or maybe I don't want my friends to see me in PJs, or and so that aha moment, because like I said, there's no like reasoning with children, I mean, for the most part, but like finding ways to like get things to click is always really important as a parent. So like for me, like once my child or something would have clicked, then I'm like, all right, let's go home and change now that you know. But that's hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's quite wild. What do you think as well, Drew?
I think he's an asshole.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Do you know why? Because his child's brain is still forming, in it, and as irrational as that child can be, they're still a child. Mm-hmm. So to have an experience where they're at school for the whole day in their pajamas and everybody else is there, that's like, it can be a little bit traumatizing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I would go ahead with the threat. I would 100% drive them in the car, and then I'd probably turn around and say, I want to go and get changed. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't just drop them off and then go about my business. He's got to work. His wife's got to pick her up, and he hasn't said anything to his wife. So his wife's getting home with the daughter in her pajamas. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy? And that wasn't discussed as well, which is another reason I think is also like, if you're gonna make those decisions, you got to speak to your wife. If you're all for it as a team, then yeah, it's fine. Well, you don't just make that decision by yourself and then go about your day. Like, you got what I mean? And that's what hit home for me. Like, I wouldn't do that. That's a bit raw.
He didn't seem to feel any remorse.
Yeah, like he went, but he dropped her off, and that was it. Like, right, I'll see you later.
Said I'm
going to work.
Yeah, I had a good day.
It's like something out of The Simpsons, isn't it?
Yeah, like so, like thoughtless. Just this will do it. Like, she won't do it again.
I mean, anyway. She probably won't do that. Yeah, she probably won't do that again. But yeah, I get what you're both saying. I think as well, like. I think that's why it was kind of hard for me to work out, like, is this over the line or not? Because in my head I was thinking, yeah, like on one hand, like I imagine it must be frustrating. Like, I'm tired for work in the morning myself. I can't imagine if I had a kid now telling me, Dad, I don't want to get changed. Like, what are you talking about? Like, so it's like I can kind of get the frustration to an extent. But then also, yeah, I agree with the whole, like, as the kid goes to school, it's like this is a lot. It's like you're setting your kid up to be bullied almost. So I get that part of it as well.
Get me, like that kid's going to be known as Pajama Girl for 3 years.
Yeah, that's
yeah. But then, okay, so kind of to kind of follow up from that, then, like, how would you guys both handle it? So is it? I think Justin, you already said that maybe like you drive away. You like once you kind of changed her mind, you might drive away, or I don't know if you got more like how would you guys deal with this situation if it happened to you guys?
Yeah, I would just sometimes you like I do it with my kids too, where it's like if there's something that I'm trying to get the point across, then I'll set the stage and be like, all right, this is what you wanted. And then they go, oh, wait a minute, maybe I didn't want this. And I'm like, all right, now let's go back. Now that you know, this is why we do what we do. Yeah. and then fix it. But yeah, I'm not just going to like, slam the door on them after they get out of the car, like, see ya, and then leave them in the cold in their PJs. But yeah, good learning moment. But yeah.
I think I would use what I call peer mentoring, because in my job I actually work with children and I use peer mentoring quite a lot. So I've got 3 children, and if it was my middle child who is about that age and she decided to do that, I'd get a sister. I'd be like, go and talk to your sister, because this is what she's planning to do. Go and tell her why it isn't a good idea. You know what I mean? And then that would usually be enough. And if I couldn't do that, then I'd phone one of her friends and be like, oh, just a quick one. Like, so-and-so doesn't really want to go to school in her clothes. Like, what do you think about that? Do you want to tell her? And then I'll put her on the phone. Do you know what I mean? And then it might help from being told by a peer that it's just not a good idea.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas an adult, we're an adversary, and we're always telling them what to do. Go and clean your teeth. Yeah. Go and put your clothes on. Go and have when it's somebody that they're familiar with who's on the same like physiological level, they might take it a little bit differently. So yeah,
I really like that.
That's good.
Yeah, I really like. I'm thinking about how things would have been dealt with in my household. It's not like that, really.
Taking notes.
I was gonna say, as a caveat, growing up, if I did that, I probably wouldn't be alive today. But,
I was gonna say. Yeah, I can imagine one of two. It would have been that first scenario, or the second scenario would have been my dad. I could see my dad also doing that and just being like, "Oh, you don't want to change." He's like, "You wear that for the next year." Like, I can imagine him doing something like that. So
it's funny. The same. I could see me being left at the front of the school, like, "All right, peace, dude. Like, this is what you wanted. Like, I don't know why you mad at me, bro. Like,
yeah,
made your bed, innit?
Yeah, most definitely." But lovely, yes. But on that note, we're going to close off this awesome episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. Justin, thank you so much for coming on. It has been a pleasure, and we would love to have you back. It's definitely been really, really good for us.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome. But before we sign off, do you have anything you want to say? Any shout-outs, anything like that?
No, I mean, thanks for tuning in. These guys do some awesome podcasts, and I know I've recently been tuning into as many as I can. Thank you. But yeah, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. They got more coming out.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys, we will talk to you all soon. Peace.